Hello, sir.
Yeah.
So
Hello.
we should start.
Yeah. Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Good
Yeah.
evening, Shantanu and Dr.
Good
Shiv.
evening, sir. So we'll start,
Am I
sir.
audible, Dr. Shambhu?
Yes, you are audible, sir. So good evening, everyone. As we all
Hello,
know
sir.
that.
Hello.
We
So
should start.
Yeah. Good evening.
Evening.
Yeah.
Shantanu and Dr.
Good evening, sir. So we'll
yeah,
start.
good evening. We are,
Hello.
yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Hello.
Good evening.
Yeah.
I think you are audible, sir. So I am requesting all the participants. This is a small housekeeping announcement. If you are not speaking, please kindly mute yourself. And when you want to
Yeah. Good evening, sir.
say something,
Good evening.
then
Yeah.
you can
I think you are audible,
unmute
sir.
yourself.
So I am requesting all the participants. This is a small housekeeping announcement. If you are not speaking,
Hello.
Yeah. Hello. Now it's okay. Shrival sir, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
So, on behalf of Association of Clinical Pharmacologists, we are observing today International Clinical Trials Day. And may I invite our General Secretary, Professor Melvin George, to take the charge for this webinar. Over to Professor.
Hello.
Okay.
Yeah. A very good evening to all of you who have gathered this evening,
Hello.
Monday evening, to join this webinar. So, as the Association of Clinical Pharmacologists, we are very happy to organize this small event on the occasion of International Clinical Trials Day.
Hello.
What happened
Am I
tomorrow?
audible?
Yes, sir, Shantanu sir, we
Yes, yes.
can hear you, sir. Yeah. So,
Hello.
yes, sir, Dr. Biswas, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. I am here.
So, May 20th is celebrated as International Clinical Trials Day worldwide, and it is an important time for us to reflect on the importance of clinical trials and also the contributions done by different stakeholders, especially the sponsors, the patients who are involved in trials, the investigators, the ethics committees. So this entire ecosystem is involved actively in ensuring we get better effective drugs and safe drugs in the market. So this evening we are going to have two events. One is a lecture from Dr. Shantanu Tripathi, and the other is we have a panel discussion followed by the lecture, and then we also have a short lecture on governance and ethics commission. So we have three small events lined up. We are expecting all this to finish in 90 minutes. So one request again, I request all of you who are not speaking, please put your audio in mute. You could put your videos on, but please put your audio in mute so that it does not distract the rest of the audience. So with this,
Am I audible?
yes, sir,
Dr.
you're
Shambhu?
audible. We can hear you, sir. Yes. So now I invite Dr. N.R. Biswas, Vice Chancellor, SPV University, to come forward and introduce the speaker, Dr. Shantanu Tripathi, for his session. Over to you, Dr. Biswas, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Melvin. And it's a really fantastic arrangement. I was just told today, I think it is a good attempt from our society organized by Association of Clinical Pharmacologists. And in this day means International Clinical Trial Day 2024, and nothing better than the theme can be this data-centric clinical research. And as I was told that Professor Tripathi is the first speaker, and he will speak on mainly the introductory parts, and then there will be panel discussion on the benefits and challenges of this data resolution in advanced technology in clinical research, and followed by another topics by Mr. Sudhir Patel on e-governance in ethics-centric functioning. And as I have seen that there is a panel discussion on this, and there will be speakers, Tripathi itself, Dr. Shaival Mukherjee, Melvin, and Samajda is the convener. So that is in short the total the program of today's event. And as for the last couple of months, I was appearing in many UGC organized meetings, and the AIU means Association of Indian Universities, all vice chancellors. So we are passing in a very transition phase from the conventional clinical research than to this artificial intelligence, then the digital mode, online mode, and all higher education institutes, including the clinical research centers also, they have to be flexible, but where NMC is still very rigid, we cannot go beyond certain flexibility. So there is a lot of challenges, so we have to face and we have to find the solutions how to work on that. So with this few introductory sentence, I hand over to Dr. Tripathi to start his introductory lecture on the topics. Thank you. Over to Tripathi.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yeah.
So let me share my screen. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir. You need to put full screen.
Is it full screen now?
No,
Not yet, sir.
it is not.
So please guide me. I should stop share and come back again.
Yeah, you just stop share and again
And then
start sharing, and then you will get the full screen.
is it now full screen?
Yes, sir. It is full screen.
Okay.
Please go ahead, sir.
So today we are going to discuss the data-centric clinical research, which is the theme of this year's International Clinical Trials Day, as we all know. So I'll be just introducing this theme, and then this will be followed by a panel discussion. And after that, there is another small lecture regarding ethics committee functioning and how that can be with the newer technologies, how we can increase the efficiency of ethics committee operations. So that will be again another lecture. So to start with, a little bit of history. As we all know, it was long back in 1747, 20th of May. Of course, today is 19th of May. On the eve of this 20th of May, which is the International Clinical Trials Day, that we have decided to have this small event today from Association of Clinical Pharmacologists. And this was the day, in fact, when James Lean started his famous clinical trial on scurvy, and that laid the foundation for modern clinical research, we all know. And as we already mentioned, that the theme of this year's International Clinical Trials Day is data-centric clinical research. So we are Association of Clinical Pharmacologists. It's a professional society of expert clinical pharmacologists in the country, in India. And it is the association is dedicated in upholding the cause of development of health technologies, including drugs, diagnostics, devices, vaccines, etc., as well as their safe and appropriate usage in healthcare delivery. The association is offering this brief event in observance of Ictd 2024. As we all know, the importance of data, not just in research, but also in day-to-day practice, clinical practice. And in the last couple of decades, we have seen how there is a, rather they call it, data revolution has taken place. We are actually now stepped into the era of data revolution, the huge rise of data and technology in all walks of life, and the healthcare and medicine is no exception. There is also huge entry of the data and the technologies. The impacts, benefits, and challenges of these disruptive technologies in healthcare cannot be underestimated. Today, we'll be deliberating on this theme, the pillars of this data-centric clinical research, their approaches, their the different stakeholders, and what is their relative roles. More and more, we are appreciating the importance of the patients and the clinical research participants, as well as the society, how they can be engaged. Over and above, of course, the prime role of the industry, who are investing in getting the newer technologies in the market, as well as controlling the whole affair by the regulatory authorities for different nations. We also would be discussing a little bit about the data protection legislation in India and how it can impact the clinical research in today's time. So as new data sources and information processing technologies are emerging, clinical research is being revisited every day in terms of the methodologies, newer tools, and the day-to-day practice is also being transformed daily. We all know the left-hand side pyramid, that is the data, information, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, how it escalates. But then this pyramid has been little modification has been made by some authors a few years back, and that is in between data and information and knowledge. Of course, we need the evidence to be generated. Then only we can think of translating the information into knowledge. So this evidence generation, for evidence generation, we have to depend on conduct of research. As we know today, again, this is the era of evidence-based medicine. And when you talk of evidence-based medicine, it is best defined by participation of course, the best available evidence generated through research. This is the this circle, and the individual patient needs. It has to be the best available evidence is to be applicable or to be applied against individual patient needs. So individualization of care is essential, and for that, the general guidelines will be developed on the basis of this evidence. But then finally, for application in clinical practice, the patient's values and needs are also to be looked into and given priority. On the other hand, an expert physician's judgment and experience is also no inferior, and we have to also keep that in mind. So we have to take into cognizance all these three circles which are imposed on each other, but there are also weak points on these three areas. You see, if the evidence, if we do not base our decision making, clinical decision making on evidence, we'll be actually using empirical treatment. On the other hand, if we do not give much importance to the experience and expertise of the physician, then probably because maybe because of the unsuitable training and exposure. Again, that is not in the best interest of the patients. Similarly, we cannot think of just blindly sticking to a protocol which might not be applicable really in an individual patient setting. That individual patient might have a different need and different values. So we have to take cognizance of all these three factors together. Then only we can do justice to this evidence-based medicine practice. Now we all know this level of evidence or the quality of evidence pyramid, and that's how at the peak of it or apex of it, it is the systematic review meta-analysis, and then gradually if you go towards the base, at the lowest level you find that background information, expert opinion, which is the weakest of evidence, and gradually as you go up, that case controlled and studies and cohort studies, these are observational studies, prospective observational. Then there is randomized control trial, but if a single or a couple of randomized control trial may not be offering the highest level of evidence, although as compared to cohort or case control studies, it definitely have stronger evidence. So that's how we this pyramid actually depicts the levels of evidence. Then we have to also think of the based on these levels of evidence, the classes of recommendation. So levels of evidence, again, there is a hierarchy like level A, level B, and level C, which has been also mentioned in this in the previous slide in the pyramid. So level C is the weakest, which is the consensus opinion of experts, while level A is the strongest, data derived from multiple randomized controlled clinical trials, which otherwise can be through evidence synthesis. We can think of having application of further statistics in terms of the meta-analysis. We can think of systematic review, etc. That is the highest level. When you talk of class of recommendation, the class 1 recommendation is the highest class of recommendation. The conditions for which there is an evidence or general agreement that a given procedure or treatment is useful or effective. Class 2 again is subdivided into class 2A and class 2B, whereby the weight of evidence, class 2A is weight of evidence or opinion is in favor of usefulness or efficacy, and class 2B, it is doubtful, it's less well established. And class C is for which there is evidence and or general agreement that the procedure treatment is not effective and in some cases may be even harmful. So we can only use class 1 or class 2A mostly. And so far as the level is, we would be preferring level A, but sometimes we have to also depend on level B, which is either a single randomized trial or non-randomized studies in terms of, say, the prospective observational studies, cohort studies, etc. So I think this level B and maybe class 2A, many a times we have to depend on this level B evidence and class 2A evidence in order to develop our treatment protocol, because we are not readily having, okay, there is no such controlled clinical trials having occurred. So we have no other option than to depend on them. But then carefully designed studies where these level B evidence can also be to a great extent utilized in protocol development or treatment guidelines development. So these are the last thing that I was discussing. They may be also considered as real world data and real world evidence generation. Real world data has been defined by the FDA as the data relating to the patient's health status and or the delivery of healthcare, routine delivery of healthcare, which is collected from variety of sources, patient hospital records, patient's electronic health record, so all these. So that is real world data, and real world evidence is any clinical evidence that is about the usage and potential benefits and risks of a medical product, which is derived from the analysis of real world data. So these are the now in thing in clinical research and gradually gaining more and more importance. Now, in terms of real world data, these are the in reference to the diagnosis, in reference to clinical phenotype or treatments, patient behavior, patient reported outcomes, comorbidities. On these areas, we can think of recording the real world data methodically so that they can be utilized, they can be processed well, and we can generate good quality evidence, which can be otherwise then translated into the health system for practice or for taking care of patients. Now, these are some of the examples of randomized trial using real-world data. So far as use of real-world data in conventional clinical trials, it's nothing new. In a given clinical trial setting, out of say total data that we otherwise handle in clinical trial setting, a good percentage, maybe around 40% of them are actually real-world data, and the rest of them are actually generated through planned clinical trials. But more and more, we are giving more importance to the real world data, even in to integrate clinical trial design into that, which is going to the extent of uh, something called pragmatic clinical trial, where the gap between distinction between well-designed prospective randomized control trial and routine clinical practice, that gap is gradually being merged or narrowed. So randomized control, these are some of the examples like that adaptable trial, where randomized trial using the real world data to assess dose response. When you are using aspirin dosing, 2 doses of aspirin were used, and this is one trial. Then there is another randomized trial which using an established patient registry, that is validate trial. It's a cardiac trial. This is by valirudin versus heparin in ST segment and non-ST segment elevation of myocardial myocardial infarction in patients of modern antiplatelet therapy, etc., etc. So there are many and many more randomized control trials which are using more and more real world data, and this is a new advance in the area of clinical research. Now, we also have entered into the era of virtual clinical trial, particularly it was a need-based thing during the COVID pandemic. In fact, we had no other alternative than to go for some aspects or some operations of clinical trial. We have to depend on a remote mode, and that is how gradually the virtual clinical trial has started becoming popular. And then we have realized that all the tasks relating to critical tasks relating to clinical trial conduct, we can think of taking help of the different virtual modes. Okay, whether it is recruitment of patients, where we can take approaches like using social media or mobile devices, informed consent, online consenting, retention of patients in a trial, again, social media, mobiles, remote patient monitoring, etc. Compliance can be improved again through these virtual modes. Data capture and processing also have been the different models are available. Okay, for this thing, data analysis also. So there are many ways by which the efficiency of the clinical trial can be augmented by taking help of these virtual mechanisms. There are more and more examples. Now it is gradually becoming a new normal in the clinical trial operations. Use of wearables or phones for monitoring electronic medical records, e-consent forms, the social media, as we discussed, social media advertisements of trials, web-based or cloud-based data collection and transfer of data. There, uh, the advances in artificial intelligence, machine learning platforms for data analytics. So in different ways, the digital components that enable a trial to be virtual. So there are different names by which we can call it the digitalization of clinical trial operations. In one word, we can say. So the decentralized clinical trials, there are different stakeholders benefit from this decentralized design, whether they are patients, whether it is the sites or site people, or whether it is sponsor. It offers lots of benefits and lots of advantages to all these critical stakeholders in clinical trials. Digitalization of clinical trials, mainly these are the three important elements. One is digital recruitment retention, one is digital health data collection, and then digital analytics. These three elements, they are discussed in this particular paper, okay, in 2020. And digital clinical trials have come to stay now. Use of connected digital products, of course, it is not very new. For the last, say, more than 2 decades, it is happening. When you talk of connected digital products, they should have these different elements. They are supposed to measure health-related data. They have software component. They include usually a sensor element. Usually, they are portable and connected either through Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, etc. They are designed for patient use with little or no clinician involvement required. So definitely they offer great advantage. And in one paper, they actually analyze these use of extent of use of these connected digital products over 18 years, starting from 2000 year 2000 to 2018. And there is a exponential growth in the use of these connected digital products, and gradually more and more they are becoming popular. AI and uh, machine learning has also come in a big way in all aspects, whether analytics, whether study design, the study setup. In all areas, they have found their application, and gradually more and more clinical trials are more efficiently being conducted with the help of application of AI and ML. Of course, in order to adapt to these newer needs, the clinical trial investigators and the other people at the site, they need to also increase their capacity, build their capacity, and more training are also required in order to adapt ourselves. A couple of words about the legislation in India in reference to digital personal data protection. This act has come only in 2023. These are some of the key terms I thought that we can try to mention here. One is data fiduciary. Data fiduciary is any person who alone or in conjunction with other persons determine the purpose and means of processing personal data. That is data fiduciary. That means if we try to translate it in clinical trial setting or even in healthcare setting, the hospital or clinical trial site, they are actually data fiduciary. Hospital or clinical trial site, or we can say the investigator or investigator team, they are data fiduciary because they are trying to determine the purpose and the means of processing personal data. Now, what is personal data? If we come to the third bullet, any data about an individual who is identifiable by or in relation to such data. So that is personal data. But the moment I de-identify that, it is no longer a personal data. It is just data. Okay. So handling personal data, we should otherwise exercise a lot of caution. Okay. With care, we have to handle personal data, particularly when trying to capture personal data and also documenting them, okay, putting it into processing them, etc. There is another term called data principal. Okay, colloquially we say data owner, the person from whom the data is being gathered, data is being collected. So, but then the legal term is data principal. That is the individual from whom the personal data uh, to whom the personal data relates, and where such individual is a child or a person with disability, then the data principal would include the parents or lawful guardian of the child, or in case of disability includes her lawful guardian or acting on her behalf. So this is data principal. So in a simple term, a data principal is a patient or even a healthy person whose data we are collecting. So he is the data principal, and data fiduciary, the person who is collecting the data and processing the data and determines the purpose and means of processing the data. So, and lastly, we should also know when there is what is called personal data breach. Any unauthorized processing, again, unauthorized processing. When we are conducting clinical trial, we are authorized to process it or process personal data, but we should know how to process it, how to de-identify it, how to transfer it. Okay, so all these, whatever we do, we should respect the privacy of these data, and we should handle it with care, with appropriate guidelines. So there is another act in India, that is Digital Information Security in Healthcare Act, DISHA Act, that serves as a framework for development of digital health records in India. and enables the digital sharing of individual health records with hospitals and clinics, as well as between hospitals and clinics. And it requires organizations to facilitate electronic health data privacy, confidentiality, security, and standardization. And any person who is otherwise working in that organization, it becomes imperative for following all these requirements by them also. So these are the two acts: 2019 Disha and the 2023 used in the act. I found that none of them are actually relating to healthcare or health research, but then they are definitely otherwise can be applied in healthcare, and in case of any kind of litigation, these act will be referred to. So we should otherwise be conversant with these provisions of this act. So to conclude, the take-home messages are: continuous evidence generation is a must for excellence in healthcare. There is no alternative to clinical research in terms of evidence generation. Data and information are essential elements in practice and in research. Randomized control trials and evidence synthesis research, systematic review and meta-analysis are superior forms of evidence. In the last decade, the concept of and utility of real-world evidence and importance of real-world data gained ground, both for improving efficiency of traditional randomized control trials and in their own potential to generating real-world evidence. Real-world data from diverse sources are in the center stage of clinical research today. Let's go on. Newer technologies, including connected digital products, EHR, electronic health record, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, etc., are strengthening clinical trial operations. Virtual remote offsite operations are proving more patient-friendly, more efficient, and more cost-effective. Diverse newer challenges are recognized, of course, in this new era. Logistic challenges, ethical challenges, legal challenges, regulatory challenges, but all of them can be addressed appropriately through continuous stakeholders interactions, capacity building of key personnel, and policy and regulatory reforms. Together, we look forward to a newer era of clinical research. I think that was the last slide. Thank you very much. So I think because there is a panel discussion, if there are questions that can be put up during the panel.
Yeah, Dr. Shambhu, I think we'll go ahead with the panel discussion. You could probably moderate the session.
Okay, sir. So am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion on the benefits and challenges of the data revolution and advanced technology in clinical research. Over the past decade, we have seen an unprecedented amount of data generated and shared, and that significantly impact clinical research and also the drug development. The integration of advanced technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning has transformed how we collect, analyze, and interpret the data. However, this data revolution also presents several challenges, particularly regarding data privacy and ethical considerations. So today, we have an esteemed panel of experts to discuss these critical issues and explore how we can leverage data to advance clinical research while addressing the associated challenges. let's dive into our discussion and let's start today's first question to our esteemed panelist, Dr. Shoibal Mukherjee. So, sir, welcome. And I'm asking you, how has the data revolution impacted clinical research over the past decade? I think you were very close in this data revolution part for last 3 or 4 decades. So what is your experience, sir?
Good evening, everybody, and thanks for inviting me to this panel discussion. Really very interesting topic about data, and as you pointed out, I have indeed been closely related to this data, but of late I have been thrown into the middle of this because now I'm working in a hospital, and I see that there are so many entities that want to collaborate with hospitals to particularly in the aspects of data. So in the past, uh, hospitals, of course, have helped the development of new health technologies by providing data on a case-by-case basis. So there is a product here that needs to be developed by a pharmaceutical company or a device company, and they approach hospitals and they make a protocol, and the hospital then works that protocol within the hospital and generates data and passes it on. Now, of course, we are seeing a new wave, another type of company that wants another kind of data where there is no real protocol. So these are the IT companies that are working on artificial intelligence algorithms, and they want to collaborate with hospitals and generators of health data um, to get what might be called real world data. It's not real world evidence as such, because that evidence will be generated from that data, but they just want that data at this present time. And that data can be of various kinds. So some of that data has to do with what's happening to patients, and that's usually of academic interest, and a lot of academic bodies want to collaborate there, because the amount of data which is required for machine learning and the training of artificial intelligence algorithms is very vast. And at every stage of development of artificial intelligence algorithms, you require data, which is different from developing a drug. A drug, initially, it's all chemical, the chemistry and all that, and then you go into animal studies, and then finally you require human data. But here, right from the inception of the preparation of that algorithm to training that algorithm, to validating that algorithm, and then keeping that algorithm relevant as time goes by, at each stage, you require to feed it more and more data. So there are these companies that are approaching, and the kinds of data they require. Sometimes they require digital data in the form of digital images. So they are working on images to capture and be able to make diagnostic, for diagnostic applications, to be able to read a radiograph or an echocardiogram, to be able to say something which is better than what the human radiologist is able to do. Sometimes it is genetic data that they want to analyze and see how different genes and different expressions of genes lead to different outcomes. Sometimes they want data related to drugs and the outcomes of the use of drugs in certain populations. So we are seeing an enormous surge in the demand for this kind of data. And the problem now is that the hospitals, while they do have the patients and they do generate that data may not be in a form that can be shared. So when I look at this group of hospitals that I'm working for, I find that often the clinicians are collecting that data in the written form. So it's handwritten data. So when it's handwritten data, it's not even digital. There are medical transcriptionists who are just scanning that information at the end of the OPD visit and uploading it into the system. So for an individual patient, it's fine. You have all that data. You can go back and see what happened in the previous visit or the visit before that. What is the radiology report and what's the pathology report? But you cannot analyze that data in large quantities as it is required for the new um, uh, data requirements. So that is one issue, that it is not in digital form. The second is, even when it is in digital form and the doctors are actually entering it as text, it is still text. It is not structured data in particular fields that can be easily analyzed. Of course, a lot of the data is also analyzable data. The reports are not, but at least the blood counts, the reports that come from the pathology laboratory, from the limbs data, all that is available. So now it's a question of how to synthesize this data, and I don't think anybody in the country, at least currently, is doing it in the manner that it can really be done. It requires redesigning of the way the data is collected, and then it requires also a platform where that data can be exchanged. So somebody developing an artificial intelligence algorithm would be able to approach that platform and ask for that data, and those who have that data will be able to say on that platform that yes, we can provide you this data. So what is the structure of the data has to be told to them, and they will then say yes, this data is available, or this much data is available, this data is not available. For example, you want 6 years data, no, I have 3 years data only. You require for so many parameters, I have only about 70% of those parameters, etc. And the third thing that has to be thought about is what is the cost of this exchange. And IT companies have gotten used to getting that information more or less for free, because every time you go on Amazon, you buy something, that data comes to them for free. But that's not the case with healthcare. All these years, we have pharmaceutical companies have been paying for that data, and that data is something that should generate revenues, and those revenues can be used for research, can be used for improving patient care, and it can be used for reducing the burden of the costs of all of this to the patient. So with that, I think I try to kind of sum up where we have come to in this new data age.
Yes, sir. So actually, you were telling about that even nowadays we are using our pen and our paper to note down the things. What is your advice to our young doctors, our young clinical pharmacologists also who are doing DM now regarding this use of technological advancement? So how should we approach with this type of technological advancements that can enable us in a better mode in terms of data collection and analysis?
I think, as I said, we need structured data. The best type of data that can be really used for research is structured data. That is, you have a field and you want to capture a particular thing, for example, a diagnosis. Now, to capture that diagnosis, you can write the diagnosis, but if you write it in a textual form where, some algorithm will have to search through a whole lot of text in which you have written the diagnosis, as well as the patient's name and the age and the history of the patient, the complaints, everything is there. And the diagnosis is also there, hidden there somewhere, but it's not easily available. Now, if you can put the diagnosis separately in a separate field, and then you also classify that diagnosis according to some well-known uh,
Disease classification.
classification, such as the ICD-10 or the ICD-9, and you put a code to it, then that becomes much more valuable data. Otherwise, you have to do it retrospectively, and it becomes almost impossible to do because there's so much of manual work required.
Thank you. Thank
So
you, sir.
that would be my suggestion, that at least this small thing you can do of putting the diagnosis in a structured form and in a particular code which is recognized internationally.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Now, may I ask Professor Melvin George? Sir, we had learned a little bit about the data sharing. If we ask, I ask you regarding the benefits of data sharing. Can you provide some also examples of significant breakthroughs in clinical research that have resulted from this type of data sharing, and how this data sharing improve the reproducibility and transparency of the clinical trials or any clinical studies? So what is your opinion, sir?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Shambhu, and good evening to every one of you who are part of this panel discussion. There are certain examples of clinical registry databases for certain diseases. For example, there is a Parkinson's disease registry database, which has data of a large volume of patients. Also, the progress of these patients over a period of time has been recorded in those databases, and these databases have been used for planning clinical trials when it comes to choosing the ideal endpoints to see how best the MRI findings could be adjusted when it comes to defining the endpoints of that study. So the point I'm trying to say is that there are clinical trials that have been designed on the basis of publicly available data that is shared in certain platforms, data platforms, large data platforms, and that has enabled these protocols to design enriched clinical trials so that the ideal patient would be recruited in the clinical trial. One of the greatest challenges in clinical trials is you include all patients and end up having people who are a lot of people who are non-responders getting the drugs, and it resulting in a situation where there is no efficacy in that group. So now we are trying to see how we can have enriched patient populations in clinical trials, where we identify in advance who are the people who are most likely to respond to a particular therapy. Now, how do we find that kind of group? For that, if we have certain database like this, that would obviously help in gauging, for example, the utilization of certain biomarkers that can rightly predict which are the patients who are most likely responding to a particular kind of therapy in a disease. So these kind of data could be gauged from these databases and used in clinical trials. But the thing is, these are all isolated examples. It is definitely not the norm of the day now. But as people, as different societies, different patient disease guideline groups, when they realize the importance of data sharing, I think in the days ahead, we will be seeing more of data sharing happening between hospitals, between different groups, so that in the interest of the patients, in the interest of identifying better drugs at a faster pace, if you can improve the pace at which drugs are actually reaching the market through these smartly designed trials, I think we will be able to see larger engagement from different groups on data sharing. Yes, Dr. Tripathi wanted to make a point, I think.
Yes, I was just trying to make a comment here. Particularly, I'll be seeking opinion of Dr. Mukherjee and also Dr. Melvin, that the way things are moving, it's clear that there is a huge opportunity and there is a real need for having real world data and trying to find either finding research question, or trying to also answer frame research question using those data, trying to create evidence. But then the kind of attitude and habit in our country is as a medical fraternity, we are not very comfortable in properly documenting things. Okay, this is not in our nature, not in our gene. But then in big hospitals, corporate hospital, the practice is changing, and there is electronic medical record is coming, digital prescribing is happening, which is not very likely that in coming one decade, most of the state hospitals, okay, they will be able to actually adapt to these electronic medical record. So if it is true, then I have a concern that the kind of data which will be otherwise used for this real world evidence generation, etc., will be a little skewed. Okay, people who are coming to corporate hospitals are definitely different kind of people as compared to people who are coming in state government hospitals. So the quality of data, for that matter, it's not really would be representative of the vast majority of the people in India. So what is your thought about that, Dr. Mukherjee?
So I think developments are that are happening now may make this problem a little less acute. Uh, I'm talking of so as you rightly pointed out, and it's true even in private hospitals, but private hospitals are making the effort to convert written text into structured data. In government hospitals, that might be an uphill task. However, government hospitals are also uploading data digitally. Many of the government hospitals have moved in that direction, and those of us who are able to influence that, I think we should get them at least to scan and put PDF documents into the database, because now, only as of this week, last week, in fact, we heard the news of GPT 4.0 being made available. Now, GPT 4.0 has the capacity to read text. You show it a letter, for example, handwritten letter, and it will tell you. It will not only read that letter, but it will further tell you what the language that was used. So, if that letter was written in the 1920s, then it will tell you this is written around 1920s, 1930s, and the language used belongs to that period of English, huh? Because English has changed and certain words are no longer used. Other words have come into our vocabulary as of the 2000s. So it is able to go to that level, and it is able to pick up the date on that letter. So it will tell you exactly what date it is. If it is able to pick that up, it will tell you. So technology is rapidly increasing, and if we can at least have these PDF data, then maybe 5 years down the line we can use a simple artificial intelligence algorithm. And may I tell you also that when we think of artificial intelligence, we are thinking, this is a big program that only big companies can make, etc., etc. But now, if you talk to certain youngsters, they're already learning how to prepare these algorithms. Also, the base programs for these algorithms are already ready-made and available on the net. You can download a lot of them, depending on what purpose you want them for. And soon they might be generally available from one route or the other, free of cost. And once that comes into the hands of these youngsters who have learned some amount of artificial intelligence programming, then they can create small sub-programs that will be able to read the medical language in which a prescription is written or a OPD note is written or whatever. And then it will probably become very easy to convert that into text which can be analyzed. So my take would be that I think those of us who can influence this, we should impress it upon the authorities that at least scanned data should be captured on every patient at every visit.
I think, sir, now in government hospitals
Okay.
also they are using this softwares, and they are having online prescriptions, and we are keeping our data. And I think maybe 8 years, 9 years back, 2015 or 14, like that, our VG that is also a very good example how the data was captured using this technology. And we are now celebrating the digital India movement, and everybody has a smartphone nowadays. So I think doctors are also becoming more and more AI, artificial intelligence literate. So I think these things are improving, and this will be not a problem. My question to Dr. Professor George, the thing is that you were telling about the benefits of clinical trial data sharing. There are different types of benefits, like we have some collaboration, and if we have this type of data, we can do systematic review, meta-analysis, reduce cost, we have impart the knowledge and decision making, reproducible, everything is there. One point they are mentioning about the data duplication. So we can avoid the duplication efforts in data collection. But whether it also should be considered as a double-edged sword, because if we are only relying one set of data and we are stopping research on that particular field, we may miss something. So what is your comment on that, sir?
So when it comes to any kind of research, obviously it needs to be validated by multiple research groups. So having many independent research groups validating that data definitely serves to improve the level of evidence that has been gathered. So I would say that at least to some extent, if there is going to be a lot of data that is a part of clinical research being available in the public domain, it might encourage people to who are really wanting to do very productive research to choose which is the most appropriate channel of research question that has to be taken and choose such kind of research to carry forward. So redundant research to a large extent could be avoided if there is enough data that is already available in the public domain. It will become more obvious that it's pointless to do such kind of research. So, but at the end of the day, there are, of course, you cannot stop the people who are who do not give much importance to redundancy of research and still go ahead and keep doing research. So that is going to happen whether this data is available or not available. But at least for those people who are really looking at doing the most appropriate research for a given context, having this kind of data that is available in public domain would serve to reduce redundancy.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So I think there is a raised hand from Oppo CPH. Can you please rename yourself, and if you want to ask the question, please turn.
This is Professor Vikas Medi.
Hi, sir. Hi, sir. Yeah.
Actually, we need to address the basic, question, because I was looking after administration for 10 years. So what rightly Dr. Saibal Mukherjee had said that we do not have a structured data. Now, before that, we need to put it a uniform policy. Like when you look at, like we have a Clinical Establishment Act, they were trying to make it a uniform policy. How long you're going to keep the data? Like you say, we follow OPD data for 5 years, indoor data for 10 years, medical legal for lifelong. But it need to be remain same for all the hospital. Second point is when you plan for a retrospective data, retrospective study. So question is we do not have a contact time. So they are not writing anything, though even you scan. You ask anybody who does a retrospective study. So literally you don't get any information because it is all blank, because you cannot blame them because they do not have a time to write it. Contact time is maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So that also need to be looked at. So as you can go for a digitalized one, but one more thing is that when we plan for any clinical study, like the concept is coming is risk-based quality assessment data. As you can say that even the document like 22, 23, 24, these all talk about the data. And third thing I just said for academic perspective, that you need to also put in one of this institutional policy that though all clinical research and GCP, you said you are going to keep it for 5 years, that also need to be clipped that place create a policy for archive policy for all the academic studies. Obviously for regulator, they have to keep it. So these are the basic point we have to need to address. And I agree with Dr. Mukherjee that it need to be structured one. In government hospital, we follow HIS system. So if you wanted to change this HIS, then you have to add that, because most of these measures like names, we follow HIS. I think I stopped,
Thank
yeah,
you.
so
Thank you for your insights. So may I now ask Dr. Ruby Rafael. Welcome, Dr. Ruby. We were talking lots of about the advantages of data sharing. So what do you feel regarding the challenges of data sharing? What are the primary ethical concerns related to sharing the data? And what measures can be taken to address them? So what is your thought, madam?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Shimpa, for the question. And thank you, ACP, for giving me this opportunity. So to begin with, the data sharing is the biggest problem with the data, the identity issues and the things that Shantanu Tripathi sir was talking about. There is already a Digital Data Protection Act that has come in India in 2023. Also, ICMR is trying to draft a policy for health research data management plan, which has revised 3 times, and the last revision was in 2023. So they are talking about an institutional data review committee to be set up by each institution, where the data will be classified into 4 categories. 1, open access data. 2, it will be a restricted data. 3, a classified data. 4, a no access data. So open access data, which can be publicly available for everyone on the real time, which will not cause any confidentiality issues. Second is restricted data, where it has to be shared with a proper MOU or a non-disclosure agreement with whoever requesters are for the data. And the classified data is a very sensitive data which can be shared with the certain government authorities or with the which is or legally or like that. So, and the no access data is the data where it can cause harm to the person. So this kind of data, this kind of classification of the data will help us in sharing or understanding the level of seriousness and how it has to be shared. And also, we need to have a certain set of guidelines and to while sharing the data, and everything should be overlooked by this institutional data committee review committee. Like we have ethics committee, there should be a institutional data review committee. So while we are doing a research, they should have a data management plan. So where they will clearly write how they are going to plan, how they are planning to manage this data, whether they are planning to share the data. And as Shoaib sir was saying, there is a problem in the collection of the data. It is not systemic and all that. So we could use a electronic data capture in case of, like we use in the industry, where we use certain technologies to capture the data electronically. So the same way it can be used to capture the data. And also the data cataloging can be done, where the data will be cataloged in a certain, like there is if there is an unmet need, any industry or any other people who want the data can approach them using certain with the help of this cataloging or the repositories that is already published in the certain sites of the institute. So with that kind of certain measures, we could share the data with certain understanding or with certain guidelines and with certain measures. So these few challenges can be looked up on that. So that was the first part of the question. Can you repeat the second part of the question?
Yeah, we are just talking about what measures we can take to address this
Yeah.
issues.
So I think I have covered both, I think.
Yeah. And you had and specifically, if you just summarize, how do privacy concerns that influence the willingness of any institution to share clinical trial data? So what is your thought on that?
See, the privacy, like Shantanu Tripathi sir was saying, that we need to de-identify the subject.
Can I interrupt here, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Dr. Shambhu mentioned clinical trial data sharing.
Yes, sir.
But clinical trial data sharing is now otherwise very much regulated. You cannot share clinical trial data as of today.
Yes,
How
sir.
can you share clinical trial data with another party?
We cannot.
Clinical trial data, if you are talking of regulatory clinical trials,
yes, sir,
that the clinical trial data is otherwise they what they call it proprietary data.
Yes, sir. So it cannot be, like sir said, it cannot be shared. But if ICMR is coming up with a policy of a health research data management plan,
Right.
that allows you to share the data in a very specific way. So there should be a agreement, or there should be a understanding regarding what kind of a data you are sharing. So if it is a data that will not harm the subject, you could share. But again, it should be classified. The data should be classified, and it should be under the institutional data review committee. So with their understanding only, it should be shared. So that is only coming up. Right now, we don't have any policies in place. We don't have anything, laws or anything right now in place. So this is all in future that is going to come up. So the privacy one is de-identifying the subject, whatever data they are planning to share. They should not be able to go identify that particular subject. So that is one way. And that is consent is very important. Why, whenever a subject is sharing a data, they are consenting to certain to share the data, and certain unmet need conditions. So there with their consent, if they are willing, and if institutional policies allow to share the data, they can share the data. So these are the different ways, and they can be a collaboration with the various industry and academia in the data, where they could help them set up certain the data, how to manage this data, to set up a EHR system, health electronic system, so that it would be beneficial for both. So for example, if you need to recruit certain patients, so these registries and all are going to EHRs are going to help them to identify that set of participants, which would be easy for them. So these are the few comments. Yes.
I also feel that it would be more easy to regulate or to capture data through research rather than
Yes. Yes.
data from regular routine practice, because research data is going to be more voluminous. There's going to be more clarity and quality of that data. So if we have good laws to ensure the confidentiality, privacy of the patient, but at the same time good sharing practices, so that at the end of the day, through this data, more people would be benefited without harming the interest of the individual patients who participated in that research. I think that would do a world of good in understanding how we have good quality data for advancement of science.
No, I think one basic thing should be clarified regarding the personal data. I was going through that DPDP Act, and what I find, what they have said, as I understood, is if you de-identify the data, it is no longer a personal data. And if it is not a personal data, then whether would you need for consent? In my understanding, it doesn't need consenting then, or seeking consent. And then if you de-identify, and instead of individual data, you are sharing the data in a collective, okay, then of course I don't think there is any regulatory hindrance towards that in data sharing. But again, I'll be a little differ from Dr. Melvin that the real world data, okay, before you have curated the data or processed the data or analyzed the data, etc. If I try to do a collaborative study and develop a patient registry, and there I am sharing the data with my collaborators, okay, in a joint platform. Right. So that is also data sharing. Who is preventing me to do that? So long I am de-identifying the data.
No,
so I think more and more such patient registry needs to be developed. Yes,
Sir,
Dr. Melvin.
I'm talking about sharing that data in a public database so that the entire world, anybody, any part of the world can access that.
Okay.
I'm talking about that kind of sharing.
Okay.
I think Professor Medhi want to say something.
Actually, there are 2 points. One thing is you have a collaborative research. That means you have already an agreement. But one more point is that when you access the data in an international level, multinational. So they need to be cleared from HMSA, Health Ministry Screening Committee.
That is
Otherwise, you
there.
cannot do it. Once you take a permission, then can be done. But what Dr. Malvin is saying is sharing with the public data, because that is required that, like you said, that if you de-identify, you can do it. But provided an ethics committee given approval that you are not naming any person identity, so you can do it. So that's how we can, process. Once ethics committee permit, then you can use the data. You can do the study. Thank you.
And then again, the question comes of role of ethics committee here. As we know, there are two kinds of ethics committee. One is research ethics before I put into a research mode, okay, I have not, truly speaking, when you talk of patients in our hospitals, so ideally there should be also a patient care ethics committee in the hospital, okay, which should look into these things, or arbitrator kind of thing, that which should also look into these issues, that whether the data privacy is otherwise being respected in a given healthcare facility or not, apart from other things, of course. That is patient care ethics committee, hospital care ethics committee. So that concept has not come yet, for that matter. My
Yeah.
point
Sir,
is,
actually,
before I plan a research, whether I can
you are not audible.
Your
I
voice
think,
breaking.
Tripathi sir, you are not audible. So as we are running short of time, we need to wrap up the panel discussion. We have another speaker also who is wait. Uh, yeah. So I think just we'll take one question, because the chat box, Professor Shubhamoy Ghosh is asking. I think Professor Ghosh is there also. What will be the next generation evidence-based medicine? I think this is an interesting concept now. So may I ask Professor Mukherjee, Shoibal Mukherjee, sir, do you want to respond this, sir?
Yeah, I think the next generation evidence-based medicine will be based on. So the previous generation evidence-based medicine was based on RCTs, randomized clinical trials. The next generation, I think, will be on big data, based on big data. So when you analyze big data, many years of data on a particular type of patient with a particular type of diagnosis, which is classified in a very specific way through ICD-10 or something like that, and then you see what kind of you then use artificial intelligence algorithms to find out what is the outcome in different kinds of patients, and then we will come to this
go to the next session, I think.
This personalization of medicine, where we'll be able to identify that patients with particular genetic makeup and a particular type of environmental makeup and a particular type of exposure to environmental pollutants and things like that, and nutrition and all of that, will actually have this kind of risk and will benefit more with this kind of therapy, while another kind of patient that is in another age group, in another kind of environment, may not benefit from this but may benefit from another kind of therapy. That kind of evidence generation, validation of that evidence, and predictive therapeutics would be the next generation EBM, I think.
Yeah, sir. So actually, three pillars could have that deep medicine, that is next generation deep medicine. What we are learning now, the deep learning. So deep medicine, they are telling that one is wearable technologies. Now insulin pump, that distant CGM, instant flux glucose monitoring. Now this data science, what today we are talking about, combined with machine learning. So wearable technologies, data science, and machine learning, that could be incorporated, and that can give us a way in this deep medicine in near future. So I think we are running short of time, and we have to finish this panel discussion, and thank to our all panelists, all the respected delegates who had shared their valuable insights to our audience. And today's discussion has highlighted both the immense potential of data sharing and advanced technology in transforming the clinical research and the challenges we need to overcome. So it is clear that collaboration, ethical practice, and robust privacy protections are essential to fully harness the benefits of data revolution. As we move forward, let's continue to work together to innovate and to improve patient outcomes through the better data practices and technological advancements. Thank you all. Now we have to pass the baton to our chairperson, Professor N.R. Vishwas sir, and then we'll start the final lecture. Sir, you have to unmute.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. You invite the last speaker, Mr. Sudhir Patel, to speak on e-governance in ethics and committee functioning.
Thank you, sir. Good evening to everyone. Myself, Sudhir. I am from Queenary Clinical Research, and it's like thanks to Dr. Shantanu Tripathi, sir, and Association of Clinical Pharmacologists for inviting me to be here. And it was enlightening to hearing all eminent members. It was really an insightful discussion. So thanks for that. I will, in interest of time, let me just move on to the topic which has been given to me. So far we talk about, Shampu sir, I hope I am audible, right? And
yes, sir, you are audible, sir, and screen is visible.
Thank you very much. So we talk about the hospitals, clinical research sites, the digitalizations and everything. And we all know that the ethics committee is also one of the important stakeholders in the cycle of clinical research. So e-governance of the ethics committee, when we talk about the patient-centric, data-centric, e-governance of the ethics committee is also very important. And here we found a challenge because since many years, now at least for the hospitals, like the government-driven, private company-driven, many initiatives have been taken place to digitalize to their data. But whereas that ethics committee is also required to change their the way of working, and today I will touch base on that. We talk about the GCP. The COVID situation has become a catalyst, but well before COVID, already if our E6R2, if we refer, then it has already pointed out and recommended to all the clinical research stakeholders, including the ethics committee. They said that the complexity and the cost of clinical trials day by day, it is increasing. And why? Because most of the processes are paper-based process. And hence, they have recommended to careful use and the use of the technology, because evolutions in the technology and the risk management processes has brought the new opportunities. Already all our eminent members have spoken in line with this. Dr. Shantanu has mentioned that the lot of technology has come. We have a lot of the steps to use that, and we have to really use all these technologies. So implementation of improved and more efficient approaches to clinical trial will bring the efficiency and reduce the cost of the and complexity of the clinical trial. So already ICH E6R2 in year 2016 has highlighted. When we talk about the ethics committee functions, there are various functions, starting from their review of the submissions, receipt of the submissions, the meeting management, the storage of the data, decision making, their approvals, minutes of meeting. There are various processes which is currently are paper-based process. We are used to, and we are very much comfortable and in a safe zone. So sometimes we do not feel that there is a need of the change. But when we go back and see that we are spending a lot of time and the cost and resources behind all these processes. So can we think about that the ethics committee can digitalize all these processes and they become a digital ethics committee office? There are challenges. The bulky submissions, we all know, it starts from the sponsors and applicant, the clinical trial sponsors. And if we are doing academic studies, that academias submitting that paper submissions, and gradually it creating a bulk of the dossiers at the site, and sites are full of with the paper dossiers. Then members review the dossiers to reach to the members. There they have to it has to be reaching to the members are located remotely. The dossiers will we have to send it to there. So review of the members, the documents, that has also become a challenge. After the meetings, that management of the documents, management of the files, traceability of the documents during the audits and inspections. These are the storage of the data. We were talking about the government hospitals. We are also day in and out working with the government hospitals and many other hospitals. The major challenge is the storage of the data. They do not have a sufficient space to storage of the data. So that is also increasing. And the last but not least is the trainings. Most of the time, every time the classroom trainings are not possible. So like we have to find out the ways of having the virtual trainings and organize. The training doesn't mean to have only a certification, but the organized trainings. So that is all, these are the challenges which ethics committee level we are finding. So we have a solutions that against that online submissions. Yes, we can make it. Online submissions, not like only through sending a dossier through emails. We can make it in a more organized way. Online review, we can make it more organized review by the ethics committee members. So even though if you are having a physical meeting or virtual meetings, the online review can be benefited. The electronic, we already, our all members were talking about the archival of the data is also concerned. We need to have Mary sir has mentioned that we need to have some kind of a policies to archive even academic studies data as well. So electronic archival, the safe and secure archival, online trainings. So these are the all solutions. The time has come which we need to think about for the even ethics committee as well. Members, like it is not this all digital which we are just talking because the technology has evolved, but our regulators are also supporting this. If we look back, the Indian GCP, which is very old document, the even 2002 documents, there also they have not mentioned that the submissions and the meetings and everything should be the manual, physical, paper based. They have also just mentioned that the formal meetings are required. It can be any way, but the formal meetings are required. ICMR 2017, it has clearly mentioned the submissions can be accepted either a soft copy or a paper copy. They have not made an end, but either a soft copy is, so if you receive the soft copy, it is a sufficient. So ICMR April 2020, but this particular document has came during the Corona time. So there they have mentioned that use the all suitable virtual softwares and platforms and for conduct of your meetings and receipt of the dossiers. When we go back and we can see that our CDSCO, the office, the DCGI office, in fact the ICMR office, before 2015, all were manual, paper based, and currently each and every transaction with our authorities are paperless. Why I am recommending and why I am the presenting here is our regulatories are also recommending this. We do not have to wait that any policies, already they have made it clear at various platforms that we are in recommendations of the all digital things. In fact, ICH GCP, again, that E6R2, 1.65 is already mentioning that validation of the computerized system. So whenever you use the technology, use the validation, use that technology, ensure that the technology is validated. We have a various ways to validate the technologies. So once you have a validated document, validated technology, and you are using that technology for the data driven process, then there is no challenge. So already the provisions are given in our regulations itself. Members like we as a Queenary Clinical Research has also come up with the concept of EIRB in year 2018. We also have seen a lot of challenges and we faced, because we are dealing with I personally last almost 20 years I am into the clinical research and seen and realize that the ethics committee requires a support and in this particular area. So we come up with this concept. We have come up with the EIRB, which is the electronic tool which is managing all research applications digitally, irrespective of whether it is an academic study, biomedical research, or clinical trials. It accommodates everything in this particular EIRB platform. EIRB has all kind of, it is connecting all the stakeholders, applicant, if it is external sponsors, it connects to them as well. If it is academia who wants to do the submission, it connects to them. Then connecting to the hospitals, the principal investigators, ethics committee secretariats, and ethics committee members. All the stakeholders will be on one platform. It gives all the benefits of online submissions, online review, e-archival, online trainings, real-time notifications, traceability of the data, and everything. So this platform is largely, used by some of the reputed organizations, including AIMS Delhi and group of the Max hospitals, SCG hospitals, and recently it has been approved by the KGMU, one of the biggest government hospital as well. There are advantages. I think in all the presentations, our eminent members were talking about the advantages of having a data digital. So here also, if you bring, if the ethics committees are also joined in this movement, so advantages are quick study startup, and quick study startup is ended with the patient's access to the treatment. So everything is patient driven, all is a data driven, then reduces the operational cost. Many automated process, manual interventions will be reduced. You always will be the audit ready, inspections readiness, e-archival, improved compliance, and cost-effective approach. So these are the all benefits related to the digitalization. Now, this will be my last slide, and which I am talking what needs to be changed. We are talking about digitalization. Everyone knows that the digital, we should use the technology. We all know the advantages of the technology, but what needs to be changed? Approach towards the acceptance of new ways of working. And somewhere I personally feel, because I also worked with all ethics committee members, ethics committee institutes, and all, where we are missing is the approach towards the acceptance of the new ways, because we are very much we are in a safe zone. We don't want to change, or maybe the many assumptions of not being the data is not protected, and all assumptions with them. That's why we are taking a back foot and say, let's continue whatever is going on. But acceptance towards the new ways of working is very essential. Knowledge upgradation. Technology, if the various technologies are coming, we also have to be little bit, equipped with that particular technologies, understand, learn about that. Regulatories. Most of the time we talk about the data protections and various threats to the data, confidentiality and all. So we have to keep ourselves upgraded with the regulatory and the new, lot of laws and processes are coming. Data Protection Act is there, many things are there, so we have to keep upgraded ourselves. So what will be the advantage of it? We will not be in assumptions. We will not run on the assumptions, when we have a knowledge of the regulatory guidelines and regulations. Trainings, already, our eminent members have mentioned that we have to keep regularly, the trainings has to be there. Even ethics committee members also be ready and upgrading themselves for the all kind of rules and regulations and new process. They have to be ready for that. So the trainings are required, strengthening the policies. We have SOPs. Every institute has their own SOPs, the ethics committee SOPs. That SOPs we have to strengthen according to the rules and regulations, according to the newer approach. We have to come up with the various, let's say if we are doing a virtual meetings, is it possible? Before Corona, no one was doing that virtual meetings, ethics committee meetings, everything. At that time also it was acceptable, but no one was doing. But in Corona time, everyone has come up with that mode. Again, after Corona time, that some of the ethics committee is back to the normal, and some of the ethics committee has continued with that. Some of the ethics committee has come up with the hybrid mode. But yes, all is acceptable. What you can do is you can define the policies, right? Prepare the SOPs and define everything in that. Invest and equip. Institutes also have to be ready to invest in such kind of newer initiatives. We are seeing that government is also showing the this approach. Even many institutes are also coming forward and bringing that electronic medical records, new systems they are bringing. But yes, we have to invest and we have to equip with this. So these are the few things which we have to change. So I am sure that the purpose of the today's sessions, the data centric, that will be served. So with this, thanks to all of you, and once again, thank you to ACP for giving this opportunity. So any questions, or maybe Shambhu sir, you can.
So just one question, Mr. Sudhir. So at the moment, from what I understand, there is no issue from the regulator as far as online meetings is concerned, right? Even after COVID, it is totally acceptable to have online meetings for ethics committee.
Correct. Agreed.
Can I come in?
Yes, sir, please.
I happen to inspect from DCJ side also, NABS side also. So they can go ahead, but they should have implement the SOP.
Yeah.
So most of the meeting they have conducted, and when you ask for a SOP, they don't have a SOP. Then it raised the issue that then it is not acceptable minutes of the meeting. I actually organized in 2016 regarding use of software in the ethics committee. So there we invited around 8 ethics committee and how it is feasible. Obviously, as speaker had already said, whatever conventional way people like to continue. The moment you go for a new mode, so definitely they have a challenge, but it will be acceptable. But most of the challenges is coming is when you go to ethics committee. So basically we look at 10 standard and 49 elements, and they should have SOP for all 10 standard and 49 elements. But basic point it comes when you go to archive, and 50% of the cases you will get, then in the hospital, they'll keep it with MRD. They do not have a separate thing is not there. So since all these are control documents, so it will become a practical issue. Obviously, there are a lot of issues we can discuss. Thank you.
I have a question. So these softwares which they are using for EIRB, are they using their own softwares?
No, this software was developed by joint venture with CDSA and PART. But the only thing is that you also see that any software is used and whether regulatory acceptance is there or not. So you may be from ASIM, I exactly don't know, but there is a plan is going on, because right now the regulator has 3,200 ethics committee has been registered, 3,200. So when 2013, it was only 1,200 where they had applied and 800 were registered. So number is going on, but problem is coming is like a city center. They applied for a ethics committee. They consider ethics committee. So question is coming is, So question is coming is they do not have an infrastructure. They're creating an ethics committee. There are a lot of small polyclinics. So these is going on whether you want the ethics committee institutional, independent. And since the planning is going on is that if you get an DCGI registration, then it will be automatically DHR registration will be there. So there are a lot of gray area, but it is a discussion is going on. Thank you.
So, ma'am, just Dr. Ruby, so EIRB, I think which I was talking about is comes under the Queenery Clinical Research. So it is the private
Yes.
platform. Just for your
So because these days we see a lot of hacking and a lot of so that confidentiality is a big issue when it comes to this kind of research. So that is my concern. When it becomes digital, how far we are safe with that hacking process and all that. So
yeah. So, ma'am, that's what I was mentioning, that because now if you see like the we talk about the EIRB, but well before we have a EDC, electronic data capture. You also mentioned in your see this EDC, IWRS, all these digital platforms we are using since long. So for each and every digital platform, this risk is there. But that's why along with the risk, we have a various process to protect it. So we need to ensure that whatever the technology which we use, it is safe, it is validated. We need to ensure all this. So then I think, it can be protected.
Sir, just one short question regarding the archiving. How many years we should archive the recorded version of the TC meeting?
Sir,
this for 5 years. 5 years.
Yeah. So yes, sir. As Dr. Vikas sir has mentioned, there are two things. So one, it's a clinical trial related. Ethics committee also. Ethics committee also, there are two ethics committee. One is a CDSU related ethics committee and other is a DHR. So like the CDSU is reviewing all clinical trials. So that data has to be archived 5 years after completion of the study. But whereas that academic study, we have to archive 3 years after completion of the study. So there is both have a different requirement.
I think I just wanted to highlight there is a meeting has been held, and as there should be harmonization, so it will be around 5 years. So once you should keep it 5 years, but you can keep it as long as you want.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, if we want to develop any application or software that gives us the result based on certain previous data, that data should be structured format or text format. Otherwise, it would not be possible to take the data and from the data any decision. We could not any decision based on that data.
Can you please repeat the question, Dr. Mehdi?
If we want to make any decision based on the previous data, medical data, the data should be in structured format. Otherwise, we could not use that data in AI or machine learning.
Yeah, point is taken, Dr. Mehdi.
That's true.
All data, unless if it is in structured format, cannot be used for analysis.
Structure or text format.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mehdi. So Vishwas sir, any comments, sir? Sir, you have to unmute yourself.
Please unmute, sir. Dr. Biswas, please unmute yourself, sir.
I think we can wind up now. Dr. Vishwas can have the final words and then we can call it a day.
I think Vishwas sir, you have to unmute, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, all the speakers. It was really excellent discussion, starting from Dr. Tripathi and the panel discussion by Dr. Mukherjee and Dr. Ruby Raphael, then Vikas Mehdi also time to time given his comments, Dr. Melvin, and good discussion. And finally, with this, Dr. Sudhir Patel, necessarily we are changing from all paperwork to e-ethics committee, e-submission, online submission, then e-meeting. It has advantage, and certainly data protection, as Dr. Ruby told, it is really important. It should not be hacked and other things. So overall, the discussion and question answer was super, and I congratulate all of you and thank you very much the organization, and we hope time to time we have to do this type of activity, at least for the newcomers, the DM students, then who are the new young clinical pharmacologists. They will have to update because we are going from the underdeveloped or developing to developed country by 2047. By this 2-3 decades, we have to be as per the international level, and we are going on that internationalization, globalization, and I wish great success of your endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks to everyone.
Thank
and
you,
to
everybody.
all of you. Thank you.
Everyone, thank you everyone for
Thank you.
joining.
Thanks a lot. Thanks
Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure to be on this meeting.
Wish everyone a happy International Clinical Trials Day.
Wish you the same.
Thank you.
You too, Melvin.